What's up, everybody? This is Enlightened Masculinity Podcast. I'm your host, Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, captain of IMC Nation, and that's captain. Man, base leader has this whole rank, guardian has a rank, lieutenant, these things. Captain, yeah, very important rank here at IMC Nation. The only one, actually, top rank under the founder. I live with the founder here at IMC Base 1 Stoic Temple in Campbell, California. And this is where the stream's coming from. Okay, this is on IMC TV. It also goes on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Leave a review, like it. This is going to be a great show. It's going to be about rest and imagination. It doesn't sound like the most entertaining subject, but it's very, very important. You're actually going to learn probably during this. And any participation, we have live audience on Zoom and Instagram and even on the YouTube stream. I'll read those comments if you put them there. And there's going to be a lot that comes out of that. So any little old ideas that come up in your noggin that you want to share probably will make the show even better. So rest and imagination. It's a realization I've had multiple times. I even did a private stream on it not too long ago, and the importance of rest. And it just became more clear and more apparent to me this morning. Why? Because we have what's called a morning process. And part of our process, morning, evening, throughout the day, is the utilization of imagination. And I've heard this used throughout. I'm 36 years old, and I've been through whatever experiences, lots of university, lots of mindset training, lots of wrestling, lots of business, that people use imagination in all of those fields. And they talk about imagination, even in engineering, they talk about imagination. And in wrestling, so much visualization. They would say, don't visualize in third person, visualize in first person or whatever. There's so much talk about the secret in the yoga community, the secret and the law of attraction and manifesting. That's what they call chick crack. If you want a girl's eyes to kind of open up, like you just gave her some crack, start talking about manifestation and the secret. Oh man, they love that. So it's a topic that's been around for a long time in my life. And since in recent times, it's become more and more and more. And so why I say all of that is because if I was just by myself, if I wasn't interacting with a lot of people, I wouldn't know. It's not that I compare myself to other people. It's that I can orient myself. There's a relativity that I have with other people. And it's not that I'm that special. I'm sure I have special things about me that are so special, so much more than the next person, just like they do over me. But there is a common human experience. And there's what I've done other episodes on this, like the straight line. It comes from Jordan Belfort's sales system, the straight line of the sales. But it was pretty easy for me and others around me to notice that there seems to be this straight line of many things. Like, for example, there's the straight line of courtship, the sexual mating process, how you go from strangers to mating. And that's very similar, analogous, meaning it's just very similar to the sales process, from not knowing a person to them buying and being a repeat customer. It's kind of like that. You're selling yourself to the girl. But then there's this more general, farther reaching, kind of higher altitude perspective of the straight line. And this is what I call the straight line of enlightenment. And so much of that, because enlightenment comes, it's relative to a subject. What subject are you enlightened on? And when we talk about enlightenment in the highest form, we're saying the highest form of enlightenment. It's the most clear seeing and accurate perceiving, the truth of what is. And the deeper you get into any mystical sciences or whatever, there's a lot that they say is truth that's really far displaced from what we're observing with our eyes. And it may be because we're so programmed in our mind to only see certain things and not see other things. And, and then there's also a lot that's just kind of cloaked and woven into a flowery language and metaphors and analogies and things that, need to be interpreted to understand what the truth is. Because the truth may not be as simple as just specifying it with a few words. We may not have the words to describe the truth. In fact, as you go deeper into the esoteric research of the history of the planet and everything, the words may have actually the language may be designed to keep our attention off of the truth so that we don't have words to define what it is. Imagine if you were trying to describe a computer to somebody who had never seen a computer, and they just don't have the words. You'd have to give them all kinds of new words just to understand what a computer is, like glass screen. Like what is a touch screen? Oh my God. And try to explain that. It would be just very difficult. So what does this have to do with rest? Oh, because on this straight line of enlightenment, it supposes that, I mean, it's a straight line. So it's not like there are multiple paths to enlightenment, but they can all be, you could describe where a person is somewhere on this straight line. And I haven't like drawn out the straight line and specified all the nuanced differences between your 0.1 down the straight line versus 0.2 down the straight line versus 0.23 down the straight line versus 2.3 down the straight line. You're further down. And where does it end? Let's just give it an arbitrary scale at 10. At 10, you're enlightened or whatever. So down the straight line of enlightenment, I think everybody must go. That's a strange grammar. That's like a Alice in Wonderland. For some reason, I just thought of that. Down the straight line of enlightenment, everyone must go. But why that's important is because I think, when you've evolved past a condition, you can tell when other people are still in a prior condition. And again, there's multiple dimensions to enlightenment, it's not just multiple routes, but it's enlightened about what? You could be enlightened about dating, for example, but not enlightened about motor vehicles. You could be enlightened about motor vehicles, but not be enlightened about communication, the science of the mind. You could be enlightened about communication, but actually not be so enlightened about money, let's say. And ultimately, at the highest levels, if you're fully enlightened about communication, you're probably enlightened about all those other things. But you could be more or less enlightened on this subject versus that subject. And so it's not to say that I am better than you if I'm further down on XYZ subject or vice versa. But what I'm saying is this importance of rest and imagination, as I've gone down this very direct path that I'm going towards, which is a liberation from the mind and mind-made limitations. And in that direction, liberation from mind-made limitations, there's an exertion of will, a strength of will. There's of imposing your mindset on a situation, your interpretation of a situation versus it being interpreted for you. But by what? Well, the subconscious mind, unconscious patterns and behaviors, other people's opinions, which again comes into a unconscious internal pattern that I have to accept another person's opinion just because they're make more money than me, or they're prettier than me, or they're stronger than me, or they say it more certainly or aggressively, or for some reason there's a pattern in me just to buy what they say because of how they said it and what they said. Maybe they said something that I'm ready to believe. Like, if you have a belief that you're preparing for something and then someone comes and gives that news, you're like so ready to believe it, even if it may not be true. It's just your belief system made you more susceptible to being duped like that. So it seems like on this path is one's will should be strong, but there's so much in the social arts that are very important because of humans being a social creature and not necessarily going and tucking away in a cave somewhere to be able to give light to the human condition, to the people of Earth. Being in the world and seeking enlightenment through the world seems to be a feasible, tangible thing, as I have seen demonstrated. I'm not just theorizing here. There's a reason why we're winning, but there's also a reason why we're suppressed. It would be one thing if we were just winning and blowing up like Andrew Tate or some other, processed sugar kind of movement that gives you that instant drug high, but doesn't really give you any nourishment. They are accepted by the sheep. The movements that are accepted by the sheep blow up. So we're not accepted by the sheep. That's why we get censored and deleted and all kinds of suppression on social media accounts and YouTube accounts and all kinds of accounts. And a lot of people do in various subjects, red pillars, and people that give the truth bombs about the truth of human history, the truth of the government, the truth of racism, the truth of money, the truth of male-female psychology. But there's a way of delivering the information that makes it more or less acceptable to the masses. But the masses, it's kind of like that old saying, like democracy doesn't work because it's a majority rules. In pure democratic system is the majority rules. And the smartest people, the most intelligent, the most enlightened people are not the majority. That's why they're the most. So if there's 10 people, 1 or 2 are the smartest, but the majority rules. So if the majority votes, then it's not at the optimum. But of course, it's you could in a dictatorship or an oligarchy, where there's a king or something, there's that high likelihood or high possibility probability of corrupt ruling. But it also doesn't mean that person is the most intelligent. They'll be overthrown or whatever. I'm not getting into like those systems. I'm just saying that it's not a measure of your enlightenment or your success or whatever if the masses accept you, because the masses are dumber than the average. Or like, I'm smarter than the average. The masses are the average. I'm not looking for the average to accept me. But then also, you don't want to be smothered out like a fire that couldn't really light up the forest. It couldn't light up the world. You couldn't enlighten the world because your fire got smothered, because while you may have been right more or less on some subjects and the masses didn't accept you, the masses were too strong and they smothered you out. And so I don't care how right you were. If you weren't strong enough to persist, then you weren't right enough. You would be more right if you survived and persisted. That's actually right. It's actually more right to survive and persist. Like, I'm at the fucking Trader Joe's and this lady there is like Native American, whatever, super into her Native American history. That's super cool, actually. And I would have teased her more if it hadn't been at her workplace. And it kind of caught me off guard when we were talking back and forth. Somehow I brought up white. I'm white or something. I forget it. No, it wasn't about me, because she wasn't personally attacking me, but she said she referred to the white man as the invaders, which is true. It's also the conquerors. It's also they're stronger. They won because they're stronger. Yeah, with dubious dubious, is that the right one? Anyway, deceit was mixed in there. It's not all white men. It's the hater always gets loud. It gets more notice than the fan, because the hater is much louder. The mistakes of history get much more attention. There's a lot done right and then some things done wrong. And I'm not saying that those were right, but I'm saying that surviving is right. It's right to survive. I don't want to be right and die. If I'm wrong and I live, then I still have time to correct my wrong. So it's more right to survive. Therefore, the white invaders were more right than the native cavemen, essentially, with high level mysticism, whatever. If you go back in time, 12,000 years, we were fifth dimensional beings before the fucking draconian reptilians came in and just like fucked up the whole culture of the planet. Put some anti-gravity projectiles on an asteroid and pushed it into the northern ice sheet so that it flash flood destroyed all of society, and then the Atlanteans go underground, and then everybody gets dumb again. Cool. I mean, that makes the draconians more right. Actually, they're surviving, but we're gonna over survive that, so we're more right. Anyway, I don't know why I brought up the Native American woman. On this straight line, you can look back and see where people are. You can hear when they're talking to you about their process and their evolution, their realizations, the things that are enthusiastic to them. Like, parents know this about kids. Like, you can see and hear their growth being demonstrated in their communication. And it's like, but you would know that even if you're below them, looking at them get better. But there's something more, when you're ahead of them, looking back and you hear them coming up the path, and you're like, I remember being there. I remember that realization. I remember those things, because you are looking back, because you're further ahead. That's what I'm trying to communicate with this idea of the straight line, that there's an evolution happening. So the subject of this show, 15 minutes into it, was rest and imagination, and how important those two things go together. In terms of this path of enlightenment, being able to impose your will or impose your perception of things, not imposing on other people, imposing it on your own mind, actually. You, and then there's your mind. There's the world, and there's your senses. So I kind of put those out of order. So in order in the order of closest to you to furthest from you is there's you somewhere, you. Then there's your mind. That's not you, but it's not out here. Like if I throw these things, this is not my mind. Although it carries some of my mind in the history of its movement, it's not my mind. I put it over there. My mind's over here. I can't really point to my mind, but it's not me, because me is further. It's inside. It's somewhere that can observe my mind. Like if I can't, the eyeball can't see itself. I need a mirror to see it. I can't just look and see my own eyeball. Or the eyeball can't see itself. I can see my eyeball because I'm inside, right? So there's my mind, but then there's me behind it. There's me, and then there's my mind. But then there's my senses, like my eyes. So my mind can see my eyes. My eye can't see itself, just like my finger can't feel itself. I'm like, how do I? No, I have to use my other finger to feel it. There's the senses. So me, my mind, my senses. Me and my mind are not the same. We're actually very different. Me, my mind, my senses, and then the world. The world is outside, comes in through the senses into my mind. I observe my mind. Most people are attached to their mind in so many different ways that they don't have a separation between them and their mind. So the world comes in through their senses and it becomes, and they perceive it, but they don't notice that they are separate from the perception. So they are the perception. They are what their senses pick up. There's unconscious patterns. So somebody may like cold water. They pick it up and they like it. Somebody won't like cold water. They take a cold shower and they don't like it. They haven't separated from their mind. So they are the dislike. They are the like. So when I say impose, I'm not saying impose on the world. I'm not even saying impose on your senses. I'm saying impose on your mind. You impose on your mind how to perceive the cold water, how to perceive what they said, what they did, how to perceive the weather, the temperature, the next task you're about to do. This enlightenment is definitely not the path of complaining moment to moment. Or is it really complaining any moments? When you see better, higher references of behavior and responses to life, you, like me, will begin to question, do I need to respond that way? When she says that, that's the big thing about the relationships that we share in IMC Nation. It's that there's different responses to what she says and does that will get different responses from her in turn. And then back and forth, you get a totally different relationship by responding differently. And by researching this subject and by masterminding about it and discussing so many alternatives, being aware of so many alternatives, seeing the best route, seeing how that plays out year after year after year after decade is very enlightening. You will make a move in life, like a move in chess or a move in jiu-jitsu or a move in wrestling. You'll make a move that the beginner or the newbie or the dilettante or the novice or the fan will look from the outside and not know why you did that or why you're doing that. But you see cause and effect at higher level. You perceive and you're aware of, and you're acting and interacting with cause and effect at a higher level. You've already seen the next 3 chess moves. You're making a move depending on what they're going to do 4 moves from now. That's also with sales. That's also with communication. That's also with relationships. One of the things that happens, and it's really devastating to my exes, is that by being in relationship with me, you evolve very quickly in response. If you were with a regular guy, which is every guy out there, your back and forth response, action, reaction with him, not always bad, just how the relationship goes, is so regular. And so like everybody else, you'll evolve very, very little. And compared to how much, let's say, a woman declines in mating market value, generally doesn't have to be. I mean, there's a lot to that. I mean, let's say her nurturing qualities, her intelligence, her ability to be with you, her humor, her care, her knowing how to fit into your life is a lot of mating market value. Doesn't necessarily need to be the same sexuality that would be towards a riper young female, but that's ignorant and doesn't know how to be with me. And so the more mature, longer lasting relationships ability to nurture even new women becomes a huge market value, way more than any single woman could have. A woman that can bring you new women and or nurture new women, even to whatever degree. It could be just her presence, how she looks when you post about her or she posts about you is like, oh, that's what he likes. That's what she should look like. That's huge. That's way more than any one woman by herself can do, because one woman that brings you more women will bring you tons of women. One woman that doesn't bring you any women or doesn't do anything to display your power to the world is just a drain on you. It just takes your time, your precious time that you're not getting back here on earth. Meanwhile, she interacts with you and she gets better. But this is the curse. By interacting with me, you get better. You get better response time, better acknowledgement, better vocabulary, better communication, better perception of what's really happening on earth. With all the subjects I said, the government, the money, I mean, it depends on how much and how long you interact with me, but I go through all those subjects because I'm so fascinated by it. But especially with men and women, and you'll evolve in your perceptions of responses and communication and interactions between men and women. The curse being that when you separate from me, then you're going to be looking down on men. Both, you're already looking down on men, but you'll be looking down logically. You'll actually be smarter than them, than their strategies. Now that will fade, just like in my exes. You get dull. You get dumber. If I haven't wrestled for 15 years, I'm not going to be as good a wrestler as I was. And if you haven't been in a relationship with me for any amount of time, your perceptions and information and how you understand life is going to dim and dull also. Like I said, we are winning. We're winning very well, and we're winning against a lot of suppression. You don't see, it would be similar to, what would it be similar? It's hard to even think what would be similar to it. I mean, it's similar to the pickup artist, but the pickup artist was hidden and cloaked, and we're not, because the pickup artist was so focused on this one thing, and they had to keep their advantages secret. We have advantages, and they are secret, but they're not that secret. You just pay for them. I mean, they're available. I want you to get better, but you got to want it. I know that giving it out for free, it just waters it down. And then the people that would care about it don't even pay attention. The people that would actually use it and make a difference don't pay attention because it's free. And then the people that do pay attention are freeloaders. They're not doing anything in the world. Lobo, IMC. Is that Hexen? You changed your name, huh? So, the ability to impose a perception. So why I was saying that about the woman, I mean, she gets miserable after she's with me. It sucks. Sucks for her. But I forget why I was saying that. Your ability to impose your frame on yourself. It's not about on the other person. Your ability to perceive. Somehow I was getting into that. Like when you perceive, she says this, sometimes you'll get offended at what she says, but change your state of mind. Lone Wolf. Lobo is Lone Wolf. That's interesting because Lobo is also Hexen's nickname. So change your state of mind. You'll perceive something that she did as offensive. Change your state of mind and you could be perceiving what she says as flirtatious. And later you'll even find out that she said something busting your balls, but in a flirtatious way. She was just busting your balls. Like otherwise conversations are so dry all the time, so literal. But if you're in a negative state of mind, just like I said, if you're looking for let's say, for example, here's an example. This is a super intelligent example. So it's a shame. I wish I could have a dumb example, but I'm just not dumb. So, but I guess the smarter I am, the more I'd be able to think of all examples. So an example of global warming. So someone thinks that global warming is real and they will see evidence everywhere for it. And they'll have explanations against it. Someone thinks global warming is false or global climate change, whatever it's called. And they'll see let's say let's say I know some truth about global warming, what I think is true, that I think could be tested. And this is that carbon dioxide warms the atmosphere. You could test it by putting it in a 2-liter bottle, some regular atmosphere, and in this other 2-liter bottle, put in some carbon dioxide, more than the other one. Lay them both in the sun, put a thermometer inside before you start. Come back later. The one with carbon dioxide is warmer. Why? Because it's a greenhouse gas. It retains long wave radiation. So if you increase CO2 in the atmosphere, it retains long wave radiation, which warms up the atmosphere. It's a complex problem because warmer atmosphere evaporates more water. More water means more clouds. More clouds reflect more sunlight. So that's why there's this feedback mechanism in nature that doesn't allow it to just like run away, go off in that direction, get super cold or super hot. Some cataclysmic event has to come in and push the ecosystem so far out of balance that it can't bounce back. But in general, the ecosystem, the surface of the earth called the biosphere, has this kind of self-regulating mechanisms with its own energy flows. But what I'm saying is that some people think global warming or global climate change is totally false because, let's say, we had a cold spell. Well, the thing is, the atmosphere is so big that wherever that cold air came from is probably experiencing global warming. That's where it's warm. The warm air pushed the cold air down here. We're just experiencing a temporary cold here. And because it's colder than usual, we think, but what happens is when the atmosphere gets more turbulent because it gets warmer, cold air goes further than it would have normally. It's just like, man, if you were in like a pool, if you're in a pool and it's warmer near the surface, but if there's some turbulence stirred up on the other side of the pool, some of the cold water from the depths comes up and hits you. And you're like, oh, it was cold. And it's like, see, the pool is not getting warmer, even though you're in the sunlight. No, it's that there's some turbulence stirred up some cold water and you felt the cold. So, but depending on your belief, you'll perceive this data, that data, this data, and fit it to your paradigm. You'll more readily be biased. Doesn't mean you definitely will be biased. I don't know that I have beliefs. I believe CO2 is a global warming, a greenhouse gas, but that's also, I haven't done the experiment. I read about the experiment, they could be lying. So I'm at least aware to the point that I believe that based on that information, but I'm willing to change if somehow I hear through the grapevine that, hey, that was a false experiment. They just bullshitted those numbers. Dang, I'll change my whole beliefs. So that's how solidly I hold to those beliefs. But it's just an example. It's for your beliefs will influence how you perceive what's going on. So beliefs about, what the woman is doing, what she's saying, and your state of mind. If you're in a negative state of mind, you perceive it differently than if you're in a positive state of mind. State of mind is very, very important to perceiving what's going on in the world through your senses into your mind. And rest. Oh, so vital. Rest, good quality rest. And I see it again this morning. It's so clear to me. Just like when you would I'll go to grandma's house every summer and she would measure my height, like how much I grew in the year prior, like on a piece on the wall, she'd have a thing that she would draw like my height. So it's kind of like that. I have this thing to measure against, and that's my morning process because I do it every morning. So how clearly I can impose my perception, my imagination in my morning process is this. I see how it's such a direct relation. It has such a direct relation to the quality and the amount of rest I got the night before. And an hour or 2 hours difference is huge. My ability to think, let's say, for example, my gratitude. I was right into gratitude effortlessly, just right away, brushing my teeth. I'm on gratitude. Like as soon as I close the bathroom door, I'm on gratitude. With better habits, more diligence, even more rest, maybe I'll be on gratitude before I even get out my bedroom door to the bathroom. Maybe I'll wake up with gratitude. Maybe with more awareness, I'll fall asleep with gratitude. And that's kind of where the process is going. It's reversing itself so that more and more prior to when I need to be diligent, I was diligent. Where I needed to have presence, I'm already present. Where I needed imagination, I was already practicing my imagination. Where I wanted some discipline and focus, like I said, presence. So let's say I do my morning process is 3 hours of reading, meditating, light stretching, maybe watching something, cold showering, grooming, all that stuff. At the end of 3 hours, hopefully I have some presence. I'm warmed up. I'm like primed. I'm ready to go. And, with a good morning process, what if I could do that in 2.5 hours and then enjoy half an hour or more of being primed, being ready to go, but still delaying when I start my service to the world so that I have 30 minutes, let's say in this example, to enjoy clear perception, enjoy being sharp and ready, energized, clear-headed. Let's say I could do it in 2 hours, so I can enjoy an hour of that. Let's say I could do it in an hour. You get what I'm saying? Let's say I could wake up in that state and enjoy 3 hours of clear-headed sharpness, presence in my morning process. The quality of your process will be better. The quality of your meditation is better when you're already rested versus using your meditation to achieve rest. Now, the TM process, the transcendental meditation, what we do, deeply gets you into a rest state, dives you deep in for a rest state. So you get really good rest right after that. But if I'm already well rested, now you're going to have quite an experience. You know, if you already have rest, how much better your morning, let's say I shave my head, if my shaving would be. If you're well rested, how much better your reading will be, how much more you'll perceive better. Your stretching will be better when you're rested. And your nighttime process will be better if you're rested and you have time to do some nighttime process versus just close the doors, lights out, fall asleep. There's a lot psychologically that's not processed within you. Your body is just exhausted, so it's slipping unconscious. But then your mind continues to process what you haven't processed. You need time at the end to process. But if you're so lacking rest, as soon as you give yourself time, you just got to work that out for yourself. Prioritize it. And it accumulates. You'll have rapid gains in the beginning, and then it'll plateau and you'll lose interest, you get bored. But it accumulates if you consistently get enough rest while staying on your process. Your enthusiasm for life will go up. Your successes will go up. You'll be more accurate. You'll be better at how you communicate, how you receive communication. You'll be more on your toes and not fatigued, able to move with people's communication so that you can navigate it better results, better aimed at your ends. Rest, very important. Transcendental meditation, very important for rest. And with rest comes your ability to impose your imagination, which is the silent X factor, even though we're not so silent about it. But what's difficult about using it as an X factor is just talking about your imagination. For me, it did hardly anything for me. Hardly anything was done for me when I heard that imagination was so emphasized and it was so important. It shifted my focus on it, so I became more looking towards imagination to help me. But until I received tools of how to use my imagination, and then could see that by using my imagination, seeing myself differently, seeing other people differently, seeing what I want to see, imposing what I want to see in a situation, changes how I interact with the situation, how I treat the other person, how I'm behaving, how I feel inside, which accumulates. The feelings inside, I mean, that's going to release different endocrine, excretions, hormones, basically, and it'll change your chemistry, it'll change your breathing, your muscle tension. And if you have a certain feeling and you're carrying that all day, you have a totally different chemistry inside of you by the end of the day. If you do that day after day after day, that chronic emotion, that chronic thinking patterns, you're going to have chronic chemistry in your body, which turns into chronic, conditions. So we're reacting to our imagination anyway. Like when you kick, when you dream, or when you react to your dreams, or when you react to your daydreams, you're reacting to your imagination anyway. It's just the outside world is so loud. Your senses are picking up so much noise compared to the inside world. But when you shut things off, when you shut off the lights, when you plug your ears, when you cover your eyes, you sit down and meditate or lay down, your imagination becomes much brighter. It's just not so in your control. You're going to be thinking of all kinds of things that you're like, what am I thinking about? It's not going to be a continuous stream of thoughts. It'll be a kaleidoscope of all kinds of different, you'll jump thoughts. You can't keep attention on anything because you have so much unprocessed emotions and psychology in you and a lot of muscle tension that's keeping it there. So it's a process. It's a gradual, ongoing, daily, monthly, weekly, yearly, whatever, lifetime process of not holding unnecessary tension and thinking clearly about life, getting more clear, get rid of the cloudy thoughts and the discombobulated, disjointed, disintegrated thinking patterns. And don't lose the luster for life. Don't let it turn mundane, because if you just seek clarity and relaxation, then you lose this imagination component. And that's what's going to slingshot you, quantum leap you out of your condition and your situation, whatever that is. Improve your condition, which is why you're listening to this. Rest will help you do that quantum leap and make it more accurate and be more persistent with your willpower to hold the imagination. Because it's going to be in the situations that it's not easy that will make a bigger difference. And those situations that are not easy are made easier if you're well rested. So prioritizing rest and the quality of rest. It's not time, how long you slept. That you can use that as a barometer, as a metric to help you, kind of measure. But there's a state, a quality of beingness in your inside, in your system, in your nervous system. You can tell when you're excited, when you're rested, when you're overexcited, when you're lethargic and lazy. And there's a state, a condition of your nervous system and your internal systems that you should be able to tell if you're rested or not. And the litmus test, or just the test of your rest, would be one is your communication, your imagination. How clearly you're perceiving, how clearly you're communicating your ideas, how clearly you're creating with your imagination, and how in control your imagination is. When you're not rested, you start getting delirious, and the stimulation and senses around you start activating your own imagination in ways that are against your will. It takes it in weird ways. That's why delirium, or being trapped in a desert, and you have all these mirages and things, because you're exhausted and your imagination is not in your control. That's imagination being used against you. It's not necessary it has to be that way. Again, with your power of will, you could overcome, but give yourself the advantage, because you've been given a lot of disadvantages born on this planet and raised on this planet. So give yourself the advantage and practice well. It's not going to necessarily make you a better wrestler if every day you're practicing injured and tired and sore and not looking forward to it. Give yourself good rest, and practice will make you better sooner. And then you can reap the fruits of that, versus developing the habit of always being sore and tired. You start to not look forward to it. You have aversion to it. So you'll like your process a lot more if you get enough rest. And that's it for today. Enlightened Masculinity, more educational for everybody. I don't know that there's too much clip-worthy, truth bombs in this. Just some process for you all. I was actually thinking before I started the stream, what would make you better? How would this make you better? How, my audience, I know who's going to show up. That's why I was like, Ranger, I was just thinking about you, because I know he's going to watch the episode. So I was like, what would make you better and really help you out? So again, any requests or comments, you can always throw them my way, and, maybe they make their way into a show, get what you want. And I'll see you all on the next one. Tune in to Enlightened Masculinity on IMC TV, the YouTube channel, or any of the podcast platforms. Leave us a review. Whole staff is part of it. Tony Kosmiski's part of it. Jeremiah. Lots of people are affiliated with getting this show out there for you all to see. Josiah makes the flyers. Anbu runs IMC TV station. There's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, a lot of cooperation. Something I wasn't so good at in public school. I was really bad at group projects. Everybody else did the assignment. I never did shit. And not because I couldn't or didn't know how or wasn't smart enough. I just didn't know how to get along. But now we're getting along really well. And that's even better now. I'd rather get along now as a thriving adult than as a child. If I had the choice, ideally I'd get along all throughout, but that's not how it worked out for me. And I think that's what makes me so strong. And honestly, I think it's very in common with a lot of the guys in the movement. So it is what it is. We're winning, and not